Hello again here guys. I'm just going to do a update for 2.32 on the Shadow Tank Kinetic Combat guide here I had up earlier. So I'm going to go over a few of the changes I've done coming into September and then a lot of the new interesting facts that are about shadows right now from slight changes that have occurred. A lot of what this is going to be building off my previous video. Again, I will admit there are a few things that were wrong with the video. I'll address them here and I hope this is going to be helpful. I'm going to start off with how I've respec'd my tree. So I've respec'd my tree slightly different now. This is mostly to give myself the best survivability when in some of these nightmare ops, and also try to maintain the highest amount of threat generation while balancing those two out. So there aren't a lot of big changes here. The main key one here is now the change that I've added Shadow Sight in. This is nothing to do with stealth detection, all to do with the fact that I'm getting an extra 2% in my defense chance, which at the end of the day is quite helpful. Then again, the other thing I've dropped here is I've dropped 1 point out of Upheaval, so I can add 2 points into Psychokinesis and Jedi Resistance. This is because having Psychokinesis full stacks definitely helps with your force management throughout an entire fight. Definitely when you're trying to rotate in your double strike there a little more regular in order to get your procs for your project. Definitely helps out in the long run. Some of the other changes here I've done here is more based on slight tweaking as I've played around with my character and found how I kind of want it to work out. The main one here is to point out that I'm still unfortunately using these two implants. They're still great right now. I wouldn't change them unless I get the Underworld, which is just a change out for defense over absorb. If that does happen, and I get these both taken out, my defense drops down to 21.88, but my absorb goes up to 45, so that is what my goal is in the near future. So the other big change I have up here right now is going to be the fact that the hilt I'm using is DPS hilt. So this is going to be a resolve hilt. This will give you the best option overall for holding threat, seeing as a tank you don't really need a lot more fortitude. You need more of a majority of threat generation, especially when you get some of these high-end DPS. So the Sentinels and Gunslingers that are pushing over 3,000 on average definitely comes in very helpful. Again, with the Shadow, we have the easiest time holding threat just because of our force pull, our slow time, project, and force breach. These are high threat generating abilities, and rarely ever does a shadow get pulled off of. The most big one that I've personally changed here on my tune is the fact that I'm using relics here. I'm using two different proc relics. I'm using the Arcane Fortitude, and I'm using the Underworld Shield Amplification. The main things for you guys know here that when my Arcanian is up, and that's my defense one, my defense chance is going to go to 28%. So it's an extra 5%. Same with shield, it's going up an extra 5%. This is basically allowing me to have a smaller version of a cooldown without having to pop anything. It definitely in the long run becomes more helpful than anything else I put in so far. If you are still a fan of using the old-fashioned click relics here, so the shield ones, if you can tie those into using the new adrenals, it's going to give you the best results for survivability. You're going to find an average of usually your shield chance hits upward of 70 and your absorbs around there too, so it definitely helps mitigate a lot of damage during that phase. Speaking of adrenals right now, the best in slot ones that I have found are not the new absorbed adrenals because of their shield and absorb boost. It's actually going back to the old armor rating ones, and I'm in the process of making these as we speak. The reason these old absorb ones do the best is because as a shadow, your your armor rating's already been lowered from what it previously was. So getting to kick up to about 7k definitely overall gives you the most mitigation per that 15-second adrenal. I will be in the link below showing the parse data, so that'll be off TorParse. I'll put a little link at the bottom so everyone can see. I'm going to try and go off what I can show you right now when it comes to just my new rotation, just so everybody knows what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to give my count. I would do either a 3 to 5 second count for any gunslingers or anyone else that may have a large AoE or channel attack they want to start. So I'll be 3, 2, 1. Force pull goes off. I'm going to click my kinetic ward, going close. Force speed, slow time, project. I'm just trying to crank out as much DP as possible right off the start. So this is where I'm going to keep going. I've got Shadow Wrap up. Now that I have 3 stacks of harnessing shadows, I'm going to go in and click my telekinetic throw. This having force potency up is going to give you the most likelihood of critting and giving yourself those self heals. As you can notice, the only time I'm going to be using telekinetic throw is when I have 3 stacks. If you ever do see me in a fight with this guy, and I'm using it off that, it's typically because at that point I'm trying to boost my DPS as much as possible, not so much worried about threat. If I am ever main tank on the boss at that particular moment, you're going to notice that I am definitely not going to be wasting this. What I've done a very poor job of doing here, mostly because I'm still chatting, is I'm making sure that my debuffs are on the boss at all times. As a probably one of your main priorities when it comes to rotation, next to threat, is making sure you're maintaining your dots on the boss as much as humanly possible. This is going to be an accuracy reduce, and this is going to be a 5% damage reduction. So keeping slow time up is imperative, just to allow you to have less damage taken towards a shadow. The force breach is also going to help in the long run. You're always welcome to read the detailed information, but it is reducing the overall accuracy of the boss, then again reducing overall damage put out. I'm quickly just going to go over a couple of ways I use my cooldowns these days and how I hold threat over a large group while pulling ads. So again, resilience is that number one you want to go to if you have a large force tech attack or anything like that. SNV hard mode, Titan 6. Those giant grenades he throws. Resilience is what I use every time. 0 damage, you keep going on. The other way I would use resilience, depending on the op fight, is going to be as a self-cleanse or movement impairment cooldown, just because sometimes the healer can't get to you and you know you have to get that debuff off you right away. So if they are cleansable, resilience will do that for you. Battle readiness is more of what I'm going to pop instead of a med pack, while I need to also keep up a defensive cooldown because of the 15% health boost. Very good using when you have to go against larger mobs. So if you have a lot of repetitive people hitting you, battle readiness is going to give you the best overall effect for maintaining that damage off yourself. And then deflection is your standard. I'm about to get pounded on. I better pop this one, stay alive. When it comes to holding threat over large groups, the key bit here is your slow time, your force breach, and your whirling blow. I find that when it comes to holding large threat, I don't even touch project, I don't touch telekinetic throw. It comes down to the 3 attacks that you can do AoE damage on. So I would come in, right off a slow time, force breach, and I would just start going to whirling blow. You are going to lose force quite quickly here, so just be aware to work in some regular strikes, but you're going to find it's going to be the best ability to hold threat in a large group, just to make sure you keep these abilities going. The last bit of information I'll leave you on is just a recap on the phase walk. I don't see a lot of shadow tanks using this right now, especially with us being a little bit squishier in most of these nightmare ops. You definitely want to be having this down as much as humanly possible. It has 2 great advantages to it. One, it is quite large. It's about 7 meters across, probably 10 with the extended range it gives. That means 10 meters worth of space that a healer can stand in and do an extra 5% healing to everyone, plus an extra 2% on you. So it's 7% they have on top of themselves when they're directly healing the shadow that this is down. It doesn't sound like much, but in a nightmare op, everything's going to count, especially when it comes to scoundrels. 7 extra percent on those slow release med packs or Kolto packs definitely adds up in the long run. The other great bit here is definitely later on fights when you need to get somewhere in a flurry. Phase walk's great for that, puts it on a 45-second cooldown, you're ready to pop it again. Again, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, anything you'd like me to answer in case I didn't do a well enough job explaining, please feel free to let me know. Thank you very much.